Back on Lunch Talk Live, Allison Felix, great Olympian, coming up in a little bit. Super excited to spend a few minutes here with Joe Judge at 38, a head coach for the first time in the National Football League. He is the head coach of the Giants. We'll talk draft picks. We'll talk his path here and all that other stuff. But as we were talking before the break, Joe, you're outside, which is nice and relaxing. It's good to be somewhere where you're in the sunshine, but you gave me the real reason why.
I've got 4 kids right now inside doing virtual school, so that's a little bit chaotic for the most part of the day. They're kind of racing through to get to their work so they can get outside and get in the sun. So this was the best spot I could hit in the house to make sure we could have a little bit of quiet.
Well, we appreciate that. It's good to get out and get some fresh air as well. We also were visiting during the break. Joe played his college football at Mississippi State, and we had a chance to be down there for a few of the Egg Bowls, which was the Ole Miss Mississippi State Thanksgiving night game back then. Jackie Sherrill was involved in Mississippi State football at that point. It's an interesting thing for a guy who was a Northeast guy to be down there. What'd you learn about playing in the SEC and being around that situation for not just that time, but also your time with Nick Saban as an assistant coach at Alabama?
I think just the level of competitiveness. It's one of the things that stuck out to me was when I went down there and visited Mississippi State. It was actually late. It was after a lot of the process, and it was towards the end of February, beginning of March. And the front page of every newspaper in town was about spring football getting ready to start. And it kind of hit me right there that, football was something down there they did all year round. It was the only sport that really held that much significance, through the SEC. They're all important, but football is definitely king. And you like being somewhere where what you do is important.
And you met your wife down there, and she was a soccer player, so it's a sports family. So I'm sure those kids, after they get done with their homeschool, they get out there and kick the ball around or throw the ball around. So you had Northeast roots, as I mentioned. Can you just tell me what your thoughts were of the Giants as you were growing up as a kid?
Well, look, I grew up in Philadelphia, so obviously there was more of a rivalry feeling. My brother grew up. He was kind of the older brother, wanted to do things a little bit different than the rest of the family. He was a Giants fan, so when the Eagles played the Giants, it was kind of a little bit of hostility in the living room as we watched the game between me and him. But as you get older in this business, you start rooting more for people than places, and you start really having more of an affinity for the way certain places are run. And I definitely had an admiration from afar for the Giants with the way the organization from the top on down was run and the things they valued. So when this opportunity came around, it was, for me, a no-brainer.
Yeah. Excuse me. Of course, you spent your time in New England with Bill Belichick. We'll dig deeper on that in a little bit. But obviously, Bill always had a great fond feeling for his time with Coach Parcells, the Mara family, and the Giants organization, and obviously the way he talks about Lawrence Taylor and some of those defensive players. When you were in this process and the Giants were in the mix, what was Bill able to share with you about what makes the Giants franchise so special?
Without going too far into the specifics of our conversations, I will say this is you could tell that there was a different feeling talking about the Giants for him than conversations we've had about other teams and other topics along the way. He was very complimentary of, first off, the fan base, the passion of the city. He loved his time with, Coach Parcells and those great players they had back then here. Had great relationships with the ownership as well. So when we talked throughout the entire process, everything was extremely positive, and you could just kind of tell there was, I don't want to say a balance in the conversation, that he really had more than just memories here, but a lot of, connections and relationships that meant a lot to him.
I'm fond of saying of Coach Belichick, he's a unicorn. He's a different guy. He's an amazing coach, the way he brings teams together. I'm just curious how you guys embrace the challenge. I've talked to Matt Patricia about this and Brian Flores a little bit. You were watching the real format for being a terrific head coach. But you can't be exactly like Belichick because he's done it for 30-some-odd years. It's his own personality. How do you bring all the good and take your personality so you can maximize everything under your hat there to try to make this franchise a winning franchise?
I'd say the personality part is definitely a big part of it. And to me, it's just you've got to be yourself. You have to be genuine. Look, you cannot lie to players. They see right through anything that's fake, anything that's false. You just got to be yourself, and that's on a daily basis so they know what to expect, and you have consistency as a person with them. I've had the opportunity to work for a lot of great coaches, and I've tried to take things from them along the way that I can apply in any situation going forward. And every organization is different. Every player is different. The collection of players you have to make a team every year is different. And, you've got to just have enough experience, in a little bit of a template of how you can approach each situation differently, to have some success. And I saw a large part of that with Coach Belichick, saw a large part of that with Coach Saban, Coach Sherrill, Coach Froome. So I've had a lot of experience with great coaches that really benefited me to put me in this position right now.
A lot of folks, when your name came up and people who didn't know the league, didn't know who you were, they go, guy's a special teams coach. How do you get a special teams coach to jump to a head coach? And they forgot John Harbaugh did that, and he's done it as well as anybody for a long time. You were also with the wide receivers this past year. Can you talk about the value of being a special teams coach and really dealing with both rooms, offense and defense, and how that's going to help you as you transition over to being a head coach?
I think the biggest thing that's going to help me is just, the experience of having to know your entire roster. And not only know how you can use them for their strengths on a game-by-game basis, but just really knowing your roster personally, know how they tick and know the beat of the team. And that's the biggest thing. In terms of the, game management and roster management, we're always a special teams moving that everything's impacted across the board. It's not as simple as, okay, running back's hurt, next running back up. It's, all right, when you deal with the kicking game, it's when the running back's hurt, that's going to affect a linebacker on the other side of the ball as far as how he's used, a safety that's going to play off the linebacker, and a tight end that's going to have maybe an increased role as well. So it's a lot of moving pieces. It helps you anticipate things before they come up. You're always playing through different scenarios, which is what I'm doing right now as a head coach, is always playing through contingencies and how we'll handle each situation.
Well, this was one that we're all trying to figure out on the run here. There was no plan sitting on the side of the desk or in your presentation to the Giants ownership of, here's how I'm going to handle a pandemic in my rookie year as a head coach. So how are you trying to bridge the gap of getting to know your guys?
I think we're trying to make everything as normal as we can, being said. We want to control what we can control and not worry about reacting to everything around us. It's my job to have a few plans that we can adjust to on the fly based on what the league makes decisions as far as the off season, which they've handled. And then, as we go into the fall, however that shakes out as well. The biggest thing is, we're working virtually, but we've got to knock down some of these walls and bridge the gaps with our players and form relationships. The one thing we can't have is we walk in for training camp in July or August and we start looking around and now we're introducing ourselves to each other. We can't have that. So we've got to find a way as a coaching staff of eliminating those, gaps with our players and start just forming relationships. The X's and O's are very important, but the thing we're missing right now is the lunch table conversations, the weight room, bonds, the walking off the field in phase 2 and 3 and just taking your cleats off on the steps together. There's things you can't replicate through a computer, but we've got to do our best as a coaching staff to put the players in a situation where they can start forming some of those relationships.
So how are you trying to do that? Conversations that are not football related?
You know what? A lot of it's got to come through the football meetings themselves and the X's and O's and conversations. And a lot of it's got to really come on, give the understanding of the players that at some point they have to reach out themselves. Look, a lot of these guys play video games together. Right. As much as, that seems like just something to pass time, it's as important for team bonding right now as anything, that they can get on an Xbox and play with each other, or they can, pick up a phone to FaceTime like we are right now and at least look each other in the eye as they talk. So, there's a lot of different modes. We've kind of told players be inventive. We're, always searching for ways as coaches ourselves that we can put them in positions and kind of create competitive situations within meetings. But the more interaction we can promote, the better it'll be for us as a team.
Well, you were in a building for the last several years where we knew who the player leader was, 12, and Tom Brady set that tone. Have you been able to share anything with Daniel Jones as he goes into year 2 about what he saw with Eli last year, what you saw with Brady, and how you can try to mold the off-field leadership with your quarterback?
Well, I'll say this. The one thing about Tom is Tom's a phenomenal leader. He's a great player. And his leadership comes in a lot of different ways. And I don't have to sit here and talk about Tom at length for everyone to know how great he is. I think the thing that's impressive is it wasn't just Tom leading. It was all areas of that locker room that stepped up and led. And that's what we're getting to our players, that we're going to have different leaders. Daniel's got to take on a role by the nature of his position. He's doing a phenomenal job setting the tone with the way he's working right now. And that's the biggest part of it. You can't be a leader if you're not effective at your job and you don't work hard for the team. Those are the two important things that people have to follow. But the other guys on our team have to lead as well. And everyone has their own style and everyone's going to have their own impact on the game. But we can't rely on one guy to lead. But I'd say Daniel's off to a very strong start in these virtual meetings by setting the tone and how he's working. And that to me is the biggest thing. It's everything he can do at this point, he's doing. That's all we can ask.
And you get Jason Garrett, the former Cowboys coach, as an offensive coordinator there. That has so many different facets of value. Where have you found so far it's the most valuable to have a resource like that right to your right hand, if you will, as the offensive coordinator?
Well, let's start big picture. I mean, the first thing is I feel we have a very good offensive coordinator. And that's the biggest part, that, we have control in the offense. Right. There's consistency within the system. There's experience to rely on there. And then, listen, I'm a big person. Look, there's security and counsel. We have a great staff with a lot of good minds. And I find it important that we talk through different situations and make sure that we're, collectively sharing our ideas. Now, ultimately, I have to make the final decision, and that's where it's got to rest. But I've had a lot of great conversation with Jason at this point in terms of the situation we're in and different things he's been through and how we can handle these going forward.
Finally, let's get something really important. Abby, your dog. Abby looked like we're ready for a really big draft weekend, and we were going to get a lot of. Abby was going to get a social media following, the whole deal, and didn't get the TV time that we thought might have happened there. Has Abby been able to bounce back from that adversity?
Well, we had to kind of bring her down a little bit. She was getting a pretty big head there for a minute, so we kind of kept her out of the spotlight. But no, you know what? I had to go down to Jersey and just get a better Wi-Fi connection. I had a couple issues leading up to it here at my house, and I wasn't going to chance it leading into the draft, so I went down. Our IT department set us up. She's actually out here right now chasing a ball as we speak. So I kind of got her out of the house, away from the kids for a little bit. Yeah.
It's awesome. It's a strange time. I'm sure you're itching, man. I mean, here you are. You get this opportunity. It's rare. The coach of the Giants, one of the mega franchises, and you're just kind of sitting in your backyard of your old house trying to figure out, okay, when am I going to be able to be a head coach? How are you keeping your emotions in check as you're waiting for that day when you can get back in front of a team?
I think the best thing I can do is just stay as busy as I can day by day. And look, we've got a lot of work leading up to it right now. We're mapping out training camp already, talking as a staff, trying to get advanced scouting reports and everything on the same page. We're still a new staff, so there's a lot of things that we've got to make sure we cover without being in the building. And look, there's things as simple as, all right, first time we go on the field, we're not having spring ball right now. First time we go on the field, where are the different position groups going? When I blow the whistle, does everyone know where to run? So there's a lot of discussions we're having through computer right now of when we get back in the building, we can work faster together. There's plenty to keep me busy. That's kind of manage a little bit of the anticipation or the energy as far as tapping my foot and waiting. But it'll come fast enough, and we're excited for the season to start.
All right, back to virtual OTAs and helping the kids with virtual school and all that good stuff. It was really fun to visit with you and get to know you a little bit better. Look forward to seeing you as the Giants season gets going. Joe, thanks for your time.
Hey, thanks, Mike. I appreciate it, man.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.